I think we should be more passionate, right? We should just be honest. This is an outrageous situation, and it's taking us to destruction, right? We're literally compromising our planet's ability to sustain us. How polite are we supposed to be at this point, right? I don't think we should be. I think we should be passionate. This is not just about me. It's not about you. It's about the next generation, the following one, the one after that. It's about everything in God's creation that lives out here. It's about our environment, our climate, our planet, our future. Bad agriculture is costing us very, very, very dearly. And I don't know if there's anything you should be passionate about. This is one of the things you should care about.
Welcome to the Real Organic Podcast. I'm Lindley Dixon, co-director of the Real Organic Project. We're a grassroots, farmer-led movement with an add-on organic food label to distinguish organic crops grown in healthy soils and organic livestock raised on well-managed pasture. You just heard from Hugh Kent. He's the co-owner of King Grove Organic Farm with his wife, Lisa. They grow real organic certified blueberries in Central Florida, and they're in season right now, so you can pick them up at the farm or for delivery right to your door across the country if you visit kinggrove.com. They were actually the first to use our label in the country. One of the practices that makes King Grove so special is that they grow the fertility needed for the crop right in the aisles. So this is the most sustainable way to farm. They actually invented a mower that mulches the base of the blueberry plants with the mowed green manure that's grown right there in the aisles. So King Grove Organic Farm has lost significant market share to the rapid influx of hydroponic blueberries certified as organic by the USDA. That's why they are now direct marketing them right to you, because they're unable to really work within that wholesale system. Hugh's perspective is that the legislative capture that has occurred in organic is not just bad news for organic berry farmers, but also for blueberry eaters who have no way of telling if the berries they're buying are hydroponic or not. And we've lost some real taste and nutrition with the influx of hydroponic. So we've interviewed Hugh a handful of times, and we encourage you to go back and listen to his story and its evolution in past podcast episodes. Hugh gave an awesome talk at our Churchtown Dairy Conference last fall, and you can see the exorbitant plastic use in the hydroponic industry from some of the pictures that he showed in that talk. He's living proof that really great farmers are struggling to stay in business as the food system undergoes the rapid consolidation that we discussed in this year's symposium called Break 'em Up, the chickenization of organic. Tickets are still available to watch the recordings if you missed it. You can watch the preview and find out all the details by visiting realorganicproject.org.
Welcome to the Real Organic Podcast. I am so pleased to be talking to Hugh Kent today, my old friend. I'm here in Eustis, Florida, at the beautiful King Grove Farm. Hugh, welcome.
Thank you, Dave.
You said something really interesting to me earlier. You're talking about one of the impacts of twisting the standards. We could say watering down, but it's not just watering down, it's twisting them to mean almost the opposite of what they first meant. If organic is really was about healthy soil, that's what the pioneers of organic were talking about and practicing and trying to figure out how to do a better job at making healthy soil, at helping the life in the soil to become more rich and diverse and all this stuff happening. And you said when you twist it like that, and the people who are twisting it are big companies. It's not some little farmer down in the corner who's successfully persuading the USDA to twist the meaning of organic. It's a big company. So when that happens, and that company succeeds, they've lost the incentive to actually innovate and come up with better ways of doing things in a real organic way. You showed me your amazing innovation here. You're inventing these mowing machines for mowing and blowing this living mulch, building this fertility in an astonishingly sustainable way. I mean, you're just not adding any crap, and what you're ending with is good for your neighbors, good for your workers, good for you, good for Lisa, and good for the customers who get to eat those berries. Good for the climate. This is a super win-win-win. If you have no concern for healthy soil as a mega corporation, and there are a couple mega corporations in the berry world doing it certified organic, then you put your energy into lobbying the USDA instead of into innovating, finding better ways to do this.
Yeah, it's incredibly unfortunate. And I think we all, we grew up with the saying that necessity is the mother of invention, right? And if you have a necessity, you're forced to innovate. You better come up with something, right? That's what necessity is. So the problem is, if you kill off the mother of invention, if you kill off necessity, you kill off the child. So if there's no necessity to figure out how to, for example, control weeds in a perennial crop system, then you won't figure out how to do it, right? If you don't have to do it, you won't do it. Well, there's two schools of thought on that. You can do what the law requires and be forced into innovation, or you can break the law and figure a way around it, or use your leverage to make sure it's not enforced against you. Those are the two choices. So a small farmer doesn't really have the choice to manipulate the federal government or the USDA. So when I started doing this, I'm a lawyer. I read the law. I said, well, I have to comply with it, right? That was my assumption. We were all going to comply with it. So that meant, for example, controlling weeds cannot be controlled by using a plastic mulch. You can't use that plastic ground cover for weed control in a perennial system. The way the law states it is, it says you can't use plastic mulches unless they are removed at the end of the growing season. This creates an exception for the vegetable guys, and it makes good sense actually for vegetables. It's a long discussion. It's also a different kind of plastic, but they carved out, they made this a rule. They said, you can't use these plastic mulches for weed control. And it's not just a rule that the USDA promulgated, it's in the statute. It's in the enabling statute that Congress passed. You'd need an act of Congress to get rid of this. But it says you cannot use plastic mulches for weed control in a perennial cropping system. Right? It's pretty straightforward. Yet this is what they do. They do it all the time. It's now the predominant system. And in these plastic containers, plastic bags, they're usually on top of plastic mulches, but even if they aren't, what's a plastic container, right? It's got a bottom to it. So it's using that bottom for weed control. It's, instead of having plastic just underneath the plant, it's got plastic surrounding the plant now. So it seems to me to certainly fall within the meaning of what's prohibited. And unbelievably, the USDA's response to this, I'm sure after a lot of pressure from the big berry companies, is, well, we're defining a growing season as the life of the plant. Right? That's absurd, right? Does anybody believe that one growing season, is the lifetime of a tree or a blueberry plant? Is it 10 years or 20 years? Is it? No, it's a growing season. You can look it up in the dictionary. It's it's one growing season. Right. It's a year. So that's the kind of blatant circumventing of clear laws, which is really troublesome, because when I did this, I decided I'm not going to cheat. I'm not going to cheat for a number of different reasons, but I'm not going to cheat. So I'm going to comply with that. I'm going to figure out how to do this without plastic ground cover. And that's what I did. And in the process of doing that, I did a lot of research on weed control. And I developed a system which works great out here. I designed and fabricated equipment especially for this farm. And then I also collaborated with other people, and I worked on non-chemical weed control. And I have a couple of patents on the non-chemical weed control system. It's still in its infancy, but it's looking very promising. And I think about, I'm just one guy, one goofy guy in Central Florida without a technical background. I'm not an engineer. I don't have an agriculture background, right? And I can do this. I'm forced to out of necessity. What could a big, huge, multinational agricultural company do if they played by the same rules and they said, you know what, we got to figure out how to control weeds without using this plastic? I bet they could come up with something much better than I could, much faster than I could. And I think it would have benefits throughout agriculture. It would have benefits for, just countless benefits. Can you imagine if we get rid of herbicides? That'd be a pretty big deal. So that's very frustrating, and I think that situation is a direct response, or it's a direct consequence of the USDA not enforcing its own laws. Or selectively enforcing them,
yes,
or allowing themselves to be lobbied.
That's right. It's not all bad, but some of it's very bad. You're touching on a huge one, and let's just throw it out and see what you come up with, which is that these big companies, in berries, it's Driscoll's. They're 70% of the organic berries and over 50% of the conventional berries in America. They are capable of so much more, of so much greatness in terms of innovation, because they've got great minds involved, no doubt about it. They can hire really good people to do research and then scale it up and apply it, to lots and lots of acres. But it might be that by being that scale, they almost are cut off from the ability to address those basic issues, and instead are turned, because of their scale, to how do we control the system to our own personal benefit, as opposed to how do we participate in this system for the benefit of all.
Yeah, interesting. And I think maybe that ties into also the selection of growing regions. So big companies are increasingly leaving this country, and these big multinational countries that are growing in Central and South America. So the last thing I read on it was that 60% of our fruit that we consume in this country is now grown outside of this country. We import 60% of what we eat. For vegetables, more than 40%.
Yeah.
This is not just a short-term trend. This is happening year over year, and at an alarming rate. Just, almost a geometric rate. We're losing, one of the consequences of those decisions and being cut off from them is that we're losing farming in this country. We're losing farming of fruits and vegetables anyway.
Yeah.
So there's
well, also in the case of organic, I think we import 2/3 of the organic soy and half of the organic corn, which is like crazy talk, right?
Yeah.
Why would America be importing corn and soy? This is what we do better than anyone in the world. And yet we are for organic. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you had a really good point in there, but before that you were headed for something else.
Well, it's so tempting. I see people, friends of mine, saying we got to work with these big guys because they rule the world. They have so much power. We have to help them be a little bit better. And, famously, Rodale is working with Cargill. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'd like them to be honest. That's part of what the problem is here. So in this example we're working with of organic blueberries, I admire good farming, and I really admire innovative good farming. I think there's some awesome hydroponic growers out there. I don't know if I would really want to, try and eat the food and if I wanted to stay healthy, but I don't like the taste, but they're really doing some amazing stuff, right? It's really impressive. That's great. but it's not organic. It's nowhere near organic. It's the antithesis of organic. There's not even any soil in it. The basis of organic farming is soil. There's no soil in it, literally no soil. But I'm always curious about why aren't they upfront about it? Why aren't they honest about it? Why don't they have a big hydroponically grown sticker on their produce? Why doesn't it say, certified hydroponic? Why aren't they out there trying to convince people that hydroponic is better for you? That's certainly what organic farmers did for decades. Had to go through an education process with the public and say, you may want to consider eating this. It's better for you. So if the hydroponic growers would go ahead and stand on their own 2 feet and not hide behind the organic label, I'd be all for it. Sure, go ahead. Let's compete. Let's do some tests. Let's do some taste tests. Let's do some nutritional tests. You have your fans and we have ours. And I think I know how that would go. I think they know how that would go. That's why they label their stuff organic, even though it's hydroponic.
Yeah.
So that's what I don't like. That's something that troubles me about the big companies that are in control of this. They could choose that route. They could improve organic farming dramatically instead of just redefining it to match what makes them the most money.
You're suggesting that they turn to transparency and integrity. Wonderful.
Instead of just the profit motive.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Well, that's a problem, right? Because human beings have consciences, and we're driven by more than just money, right? You and I wouldn't be farmers if we were just after money. We'd be doing something else.
Yeah.
So we do it for other satisfaction. We do it because our conscience demands it, and that there's more in it, more to life than money. But I'm afraid, the corporate person, the corporate being, corporations are people too, right? At least legally.
No, so, they aren't.
Well, legally they are, right? Actually Mitt Romney had a point there. They can sue and they can be sued. In the eyes of the law, in some ways they're considered a person, but that's just, a silly legal construct so that we can have a functioning legal system. But in point of fact, in the real world, no, they're not people. They don't have a conscience.
Yeah.
And they're responding only to a profit motive. That's really unfortunate. You always hope the guys at the top would say, we're going to do things a little better. And my God, there are some examples of that, right? Patagonia, right? I mean, there's all kinds of examples of that. There's ESG companies everywhere. We've got this movement of companies that are saying, no, there's more to a purpose on this planet as people and as corporations than just making money. So they're out there. I'm not seeing them much in the organic berry realm yet, but hopefully that's on the horizon somewhere. But it's really disappointing that in agriculture we seem to have some very self-serving people that don't seem to care what happens to the environment, don't seem to care what happens to their workers, don't seem to care what happens to the people that eat their food. And look at the health of the people, that we're exposed to every day.
Yeah. Alan Savory said it interestingly, he made a big deal out of it, that corporations are not people, that once you have an organization, it's different. He wasn't going, bad General Motors. He was just saying, when we create organizations, which we have to do to accomplish certain things, it's no longer individuals. It's no longer people. It's something else, and it has its own rules, whether we like it or not. And so we have to be very careful when we're dealing with organizations, because they're playing by different rules, and they have the organization, regardless of the people, the organization has a different motive. Austin Farrick said, the goal of organizations in business is to create monopoly.
Yeah.
That is the best path to profit. The goal of government and capitalism, I love this, the goal of capitalism is to prevent monopoly, because that's what capitalism is based on, is free competition. And people being able to vote in the marketplace, but that vote is very skewed right now with monopoly.
Sure. The free market is the basis of capitalism. If you just have capitalism without a free market, it's just propaganda. It doesn't work, right? You go back to Economics 101. What do you have to have for a functioning free market? And there's some basic elements, and one of them is you have to have a lack of monopoly.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work otherwise. But that other point was really good, that we were talking about. I wish there were a broader appreciation of agriculture in American history. And I guess, I've got a personal interest in this. I'm kind of a Yankee, right? So that's where everybody's from in my family. And I had great admiration for my uncle and I'm named for, and my grandfather, and farmers in New Hampshire. And they were along the model of the yeoman farmer in the early days of this country. Mm-hmm. So these were bright guys. They were well respected in the community. They had small farms. They fed their community. And the yeoman farmer was the model for much of the colonial states. And we had a different model in the South, and that was the plantation model. And that relied on a lot of cheap labor and a few people at the top. So it was not as an egalitarian a system. And I think that through some of the policy that we've adopted and promoted as a government altogether, we went towards the plantation model. I think that's the modern day analog to the plantation is the multinational big agribusiness. And a few people at the top make the money, and there's a lot of people that are barely making a living at all that feed the machine. And increasingly, those are people not even in our country. They're in Central and South America where they're really financially distressed. They're working in blueberries, $1 an hour, $10 a day. So I think that's really unfortunate. I was fascinated with your interview that I saw just yesterday with J.M. Fortier. So here's a guy who's building the yeoman farmer model really back up again. And he's saying, this is should be a valued part of our communities, the small farmer, somebody who participates in all of the civic responsibilities and activities, and is not just is not degraded as somebody who's in a menial occupation, but somebody who is a respected member of society, can feel that way, can pass on his vocation and his assets to his child and be happy that he's following in his footsteps. So I think that's something that we lost and we're still trying to recover from. I love seeing guys that are working in that realm.
Yeah. No, he's doing amazing work at helping small, underfunded farmers get started and figure out how to make a living. It's interesting. This is an interesting thing. JM's model is explicitly about not entering the retail food system, not entering being on a store shelf. He says, I want to get farm products off the shelves. Mm. So he's creating a completely different model. I don't want to depress you or the world, but I do know, because look, you're a mid-scale farm. You're not a big farm and you're not a little farm. You're a mid-scale farm and you produce at a certain level that requires that you wholesale your crop, although you're working a lot on being able to direct sell it to people all over the country. Congratulations. I know that is slowly succeeding.
Thank you for your help in that.
I believe in what you do, and you know that. But it's amazing to me to see this thing about working in the system. And look, I'm like you. I'm also a mid-scale farm. We grow more tomatoes, so we're both specialized. We grow more tomatoes than we can sell at farmers markets or in a CSA. I've tried the CSA, just the tomato CSA. So we need to go onto store shelves, or we need to think of something we haven't thought of yet. It's great. Maybe we need to be selling our tomatoes to 1,000 CSAs, but they have their own tomatoes too. God bless them. So my question is, for people who have not lived in this world and they sometimes have fanciful ideas about, you should just do this, Hugh, right? So could you talk just a little bit about what's it like when you came into this, before you thought, I need to find a different way, and you went to a broker and a packing house, right? And from there, they went to a store. How did that work? Like,
Yeah.
what was the business deal there?
Let me try and answer that first with basically a little rant, and then I'll answer that specifically as best I can, without getting angry. I think there's three things that are driving American farms and farmers out of business, and I would say this is happening at an extraordinary rate. I think if people knew what was going on, they would be really alarmed. And I think the statistics understate the problem because there are many farmers in my position. I'm not that much older than the median age farmer in this country. It's 58. 58. That's getting up there, right? And these guys are not able to sell their farms generally because they're not profitable enough. They're certainly not able to pass them on to their kids, to their next generation, because they don't want them to have the same struggle with making a living that they had. But they're still in business. And they're still in business because they may be breaking even or they may be enjoying it, but mainly because they think that their land is appreciating. And if their land value is appreciating, it makes sense for them to keep going a while longer. But I don't think they have any intention of continuing in the long term. I think they're basically zombie farms. Mm-hmm. So for that reason, I think the statistics are way understated, and they're horrifying, even the ones that are acknowledged as, legitimate statistics right now. Where farming is disappearing from this country. I think that's horrible on many, many levels, certainly on a national security level, for example. But let me explain my experience and what happened to us when we realized there's just no way to make this work. So there are three things which make this untenable as a wholesale business. And like you said, this is too big to be a retail business. I cannot sell all these berries in a farmer's market or at a U-Pick. This is not possible. This is too big a scale for that. I'm too small to have leverage in the marketplace. Right? I can't dictate the price like the big multinationals can, but I'm way too big to make a living retailing this, or I thought I was. I can talk about that more later. Excuse me, but I'm a wholesale size farm, and I recognize pretty quickly that there are three things working that would put me out of business. Number one is that hydroponics are being labeled as organic. A much cheaper system is being used, and it's undercutting the price of organic. It's a false organic, but it's out there on the shelf labeled USDA organic, same as mine. And I had people, that I used to sell to, a large Whole Foods store, and they said, "We get it, Hugh, yours is completely different." But our customers, they come in and say USDA organic and USDA organic. They both say USDA organic. Yours and the hydro one, they say the same thing. They're going to take the cheaper one. Right? So we can't offer you as much money as you need in order to stay in business. So that's the first issue, is hydro as organic. And that's really the only one that I thought maybe I could have some influence on. So that's why I'm so happy that I found you and the Real Organic Project, and that I'm very happy to participate in this, especially because it's farmer driven. It's farmer run. It's a real farmers organization. These people that work in it know what they're doing. They know what they're talking about. They know what's really going on with agriculture in this country. And they know the different systems, and they know no-till, and they know low-till, and they know the benefits of each of these things. And they to a real academic level, you guys really understand it. You have all the science. You have all so you can evaluate whether something is truly sustainable or regenerative. That's something only I think real organic farmers can do. So anyway, that's why I'm so happy to be involved in the organization. So that's the first problem, is the hydro being labeled as organic. The second problem is this flood of much cheaper organic berries coming in from Central and South America. Enormous scale. just an enormous scale. And they pay $1 an hour. We don't pay our employees $1 an hour. We pay them $10 a day. They pay 20 pesos, 17 cents a pound to pick. No, we don't pay that. We pay many, many times over that. We wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want to try and have people out here and pay them those kind of wages.
So they're getting like $10 a day, long day of harvesting berries.
Or pulling weeds or whatever.
Pulling weeds or whatever.
Production work,
so
whatever it is.
When you get those amazing
organic, they're organic, right?
They're certified organic.
Yeah, by the USDA, not by the Real Organic Project,
right?
but by the USDA.
When you get those, a big part of why they can be so inexpensive is because people are paid wages that nobody in America would consider working for.
Correct.
Okay. So when you have the...
I'd be put in jail if I wouldn't do it in the first place, but if I did and I tried to, oh yeah, they'd put me in jail pretty quick.
And so when you're eating those strawberries or blueberries on your breakfast cereal the other day, going, isn't it amazing that I get these, this is an offering that I can just go down the store. It is amazing it is an amazing thing that they're pulling berries from all over the world to feed you breakfast, but it's at a price.
Sure, it's exploiting people and it's exploiting the environment.
Okay.
It's an exploitation. So that's the second element in this impossible situation.
Yeah, the labor.
Is this competition with production from Central and South America that comes in here. So, and then the third one is the third one is the consolidation in retail and wholesale. So in other words, if I want to get my product onto a retailer's shelf, I have to go through the wholesale system. And that's a tightly controlled, non-competitive, consolidated system. The stores are consolidated, right? So there's not that many stores. And I can't go to those stores and say, would you like to buy my blueberries? They'll say, no, we're not interested. We don't have to. We'll just get them from these middlemen. So when they do that, they know the middlemen have got all this leverage on us, and they'll keep the prices way, way down. So we can't sell direct. They're not set up for that anymore. They're all big, huge grocers with big, huge distribution centers. They want to be able to pick up the phone and say, I want a full year's supply of blueberries, strawberries, blackberries, raspberries. Get me those, right? That's not what farmers do. If I was going to provide a full year's supply, even a domestic season supply of blueberries, I'd have to have a farm in Florida, one in Georgia, one in North Carolina, New Jersey, Michigan, and the Pacific Northwest, because that's as the year advances, those are the regions that start producing. That's not what a farmer does. That's what a middleman does. So the stores are requiring, by making that a precondition to selling to them, they're requiring themselves, and they're requiring food to come through these middlemen. Right? So the way this works in blueberries, and I've talked to many other farmers, this is many other American farmers of different crops as well. They say the same thing. We are presented with a contract at the beginning of a season from one of a handful of middlemen, of marketers. They don't take title they don't buy the product. They don't buy the produce from us, right? They just represent it. So they have the in with Costco or Whole Foods or Walmart or whoever it is that they're selling to. And we have to go through them in order to get our berries onto the shelf. And they'll come to me, and they come to you, and they say, here's the contract. And it's a standard contract. I've seen many, many of them. They're all basically the same. And they say, by signing this contract, you're going to waive your PACA rights. And this is federal legislation designed to protect farmers. There's some nuances to that, but it doesn't really matter. They're saying you got to waive them, right? So you waive away your PACA rights. You waive away your right to any transparency. You're not going to get any reporting from us. You're not going to see who we sold these to or how much we sold them for. we have an unlimited right to set the price. We can set it at any price we want. There's no ceiling, there's no floor on it, right? So they can sell it for any price they want. They can sell it to another middleman. They can broker it. They can re-broker it. We have no say in any of this. And then at the end of the season, they deduct a commission and give us a check, and they say, here's what we say we sold it for, right? So I went through a couple of years of that, and it was astonishing how low the price was, and how the explanation at the beginning of the year changed, or the prospects changed. So when I was asked to sign the contract, I was assured, oh, we will get you the best prices, right? Well, I'd like a minimum price at least. No, sorry, we don't do that, but we will get you the best prices. We're connected with the stores. And then at the end of the year, we're just as sorry about this as you are. This is pittance. This is what we ended up selling them for. And then I decided, no, I can't do that, right? That's a great way to go out of business. So I decided to start my own brand and try to sell to the stores directly. And when I got those contracts, I said, no, I'm sorry, I need to have at least a minimum price. And they said, nope, this is it. It's a take it or leave it contract. We're not negotiating this contract, right? Because of course all the other guys are doing the same thing. They have the same contracts, right? They all know what's going on. And then, magically at the same time of year in lockstep, they would all sort of announce that the prices had gone down. Usually when we started actually producing blueberries, before the season starts or the first few berries come in, the price is way up high, but then when they start actually producing, well, it drops, through the floor. And I said, I'm sorry, I'm not going to sign that contract. And their reaction was, well, good luck selling your blueberries, Mr. Kent. And they were right. It's a closed shop. I couldn't get into any of the stores. My wife and I went from store to store to store to store. Do you buy farm direct? No. Or we'll buy farm direct, but only if you provide us with a full domestic season of blueberries. And of course that would mean I'd have to be farming in Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, New Jersey, Michigan, and the Pacific Northwest. That's not something I can do. I'm a farmer. I don't travel the country doing that. So we're all put in this position, and it's driven this industry in the Southeast, practically out of business already. So I'm sorry. Yeah. My response to that was, well, I can't sell through these middlemen. I'll go out of business doing that. And then I've produced my own brand, my own label, my own packaging, and then I went to the stores and I couldn't sell to them, even though I believe I have a superior product. And not at any price. I couldn't sell to them at any price. And so then I said, well, there's two choices: go out of business or sell direct to consumers, sell direct to the eaters. And that's been an amazing, eye-opening experience. It's been wonderful. It's been fantastic. We've gone from getting these strategic criticisms from middlemen saying, oh, your blueberries are junk, they're rotten, they've got stems in them, they're horrible, this is trash, but we'll pay you, we sold them for this much, to those same berries being received by people who eat them saying, these are the best blueberries I've ever had in my life. And we get these unsolicited testimonials, every day when we're in season and we're shipping our product out. And it's really gratifying. I knew these were great blueberries, but it's still nice to hear that from people. It's still nice to know it's appreciated when you're feeding them good food and that's your life's work. And it's really not gratifying to work for people when, when they're making all the money and they're telling you that what you're doing is not valuable. And there's four things that we tell our kids in this country that unfortunately are becoming less true. There's four things that you need to do in order to make a living. You need to work hard. You need to gain knowledge. You need to take risk, and you need capital, right? That you need those four things. So when I look at the American farmer, I look at what I do, my God, we put the capital in, right? There's a lot of capital in a farm and farming system. We work very hard. We work hard obtaining the knowledge that we need to do what we do, and we work hard executing it. And we take a lot of risk. We work with Mother Nature. There's weather events, there's labor problems, there's every kind of risk imaginable. Right? So we assume all of those, and we turn our product over to a middleman. Right? Doesn't do much work. He's got a phone he carries in his pocket. If he has an office, probably not. He might. He drives around, in a truck. He takes no risk, none at all. Doesn't do a whole lot of work. I don't think it's a whole lot of knowledge. Doesn't have much capital in it, but he's walking away with all the money. Mm. Why? Just because he's got a connection to a consolidated retailer.
Well, it sounds like a broken system. Obviously, it's broken for the farmer, but I would say it's broken for the eater too. Because the truth is, out of this system, people are losing their choices, right? If a farm like yours can't survive, then that high quality, high nutrition berry will no longer be a choice. It will no longer be available. First, they're losing the ability to make the choice because there's greenwashing going on.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I need to come in.
Come in. Now you have
now we got to start all over again.
No, you got to be interviewed now.
Oh yeah, now you got to be interviewed.
That's the price of coming in.
Too busy.
Yeah.
Is that today's crop? Come on, Dave. You want to be a guinea pig?
Yeah, I have to take some home to Claudia.
Oh yeah, take a box. Yeah, they don't have much flavor. Just the first picking. Like by next week, they'll be pretty good. By the week after, they'll be in full.
Well, I would say they're still pretty good.
They're fresh.
I'm happy. Best blueberries I've had in a year.
Okay, so you're saying eaters are losing their choices.
Well, they are. And it's a real thing.
Oh yeah.
It's for the
blueberries. We're gonna have blueberries in our teeth.
Yeah, I know. For the system to function, it should serve the needs and the desires of the eaters. I know it's not. We've been dropped by several chains because our tomatoes were too expensive. We hadn't raised our price in 20 years. And they were too expensive because suddenly there were cheap, certified organic hydroponic berries from Mexico available at a lower price. I would add, it's not just lower labor, which is a very real thing. It's also lower regulation and enforcement of the laws. It's a disaster. If it's bad in our Central Valley, it's much worse in their Central Valley. For people to get what they think they're getting and to be delighted when they get it and go, this is good food, which a lot of people no longer even remember what good food tastes like. I think for that's a system that is able to address those needs and those desires. And we all have a need and a desire to be healthy, right? As well as to be pleased by a delicious berry. So I think that the farmers are losing hugely. The people are losing the choice. And as they lose the farmers, they're losing this cultural wisdom, this acquired knowledge, all the things. If you're not here to keep doing what you did, we're losing the 20 years of experience, and I happen to know that you're a learning person. All that knowledge disappears, and we see it happening all over the place. Great farms. As Lindley said, it's not just the new startup farms that are threatened now. It's the established keystone farms are threatened.
Yes. And once they're gone, they're not coming back.
And once they're gone, they're not coming back.
There's not the knowledge. There's no longer the capital. There's no longer the infrastructure. There's no longer the tools. They're out of the community also.
And we become more and more that what our choices are between one thing that used to be food and another thing that used to be food, but they're not quite anymore.
No, and I think maybe that's why people like you and I are so alarmed by this, because we're eaters too. And we're not seeing just our own production threatened. Our crops aren't going to be out there anymore, but we're seeing all the similar foods that we really value and know are good for us, they're disappearing also. And I think part of the reason why we're so upset about this is for ourselves as eaters and for the rest of society as eaters, because we know the difference between what we're growing. We know how it's grown. We know how hydro stuff is grown. We know how conventional chemical ag stuff is grown. And because we know this, we really value this real organic food so much for ourselves and for everybody else. It's really disheartening, you know? It's like, this is really important stuff. This is good food. This is the way food used to be, and it's disappearing.
Yeah.
So many times I have real organic stuff. I got Paul Muller's almond butter. I flipped out, right? I got Francis Ticky's cheese and yogurt and whipping cream, and he threw a cookie in there too, which was really nice of him. And I have your tomatoes, you know, and each time I have this real organic food, I have the exact same impression, the same thing. I think I haven't tasted one of these since I was a little kid on my grandfather's farm. That's what food used to taste like, and we've all forgotten it. And yeah, it's such a avoidable tragedy, you know, that we're literally losing good food.
Yeah. I find myself going back to that 70s model of the co-ops. Remember, we used to get together and order organic grain, and then we'd put it in bags in somebody's garage, and you get a box of the food that you wanted because you couldn't get it in the store. Now there are 60,000 items on the store shelves, and I still often cannot get the food that I want. I don't mean to be fussy about it. I eat very simple foods. I don't eat much processed food, but I do want food that's got high quality. If I can get it, if I can afford it. Sometimes one can't afford it, but sometimes one can and still can't get it. All right, I hear that it's just about time that we have to whip together dinner. So let's Hugh, let's close this up, and just, are there things that you want to say? Do you have some messages of hope? You know, we've had to tell the bitter story. There are bitter stories here that I think can't be avoided. If we're gonna not just get smashed by it, we have to face it. But have you got some hope for how we face it?
Yeah. I think you're doing it, Dave. You give me hope. You know, I think the Real Organic Project is the way we're going to educate people. And I don't fault people for not knowing this subject deeply. Not one bit. There is so much noise out there. There's so much false information out there. Nobody's got time for this, right? They're trying to get food on the table. They don't need to be worried about something that they may perceive as being an elitist thing. They don't realize that really what's elitist is the type of agriculture that's feeding a few people at the top of the industrial ag complex, that's protecting the elitism of a few people. But they don't have time to go out and learn this stuff. You've done an amazing work in compiling so much of this knowledge, so much of this information, and starting to disseminate it. So I think there's enormous hope. The information is there. I think people are starting to understand it. It's being articulated well, but it needs to go out in some sort of form where it can be shared. And I think it's going to be word of mouth. I think people are going to start to become aware of this, and then hopefully they will tell a few people, and it will grow geometrically. We'll understand how how information can spread virally. We're not good at that necessarily as farmers, maybe even terrible at it. We don't do any social media, or we're got our heads down most of the time and hands in the dirt and everything, and we're not great marketers typically. I think a lot of us are introverts. That's why we are drawn to the vocation in some ways. We like plants. We like plants and animals. We're comfortable with them. We're sometimes awkward among our own kind. So it makes us sometimes not great communicators. It makes us not so good at getting a message out. But there are people who are good at that, and some of them are on board now, thanks to you. And I have hope. I have hope about that. I hope it spreads.
Well, thanks to you too. Thanks to all of us. It's a movement. It is. It's we. And you're now part of our executive board. I'm so happy and grateful to have your powerful voice there. Okay, let's close with just one thing. In our last symposium session, somebody said, we're doing good work, but he wished that maybe we were a little less passionate about it, that we would be more successful if we were less passionate. And you spoke up and had a reaction to that I thought was important. What did you think about that?
Well, what I thought about that and didn't say was, well, how passionate, I mean, how outraged am I allowed to be? How angry am I allowed to be? I came into this and put everything material I had in the world into an organic farm. And I play by the rules. And I grow really good food. And there's a national organic program, which is basically designed to put me out of business. So that came, I think, from somebody who represents the hydroponic community. And no, I think we should be honest. We should be honestly outraged. It's an outrageous situation. And I don't know, was that what I said then?
You said we should be more passionate.
Yeah.
I thought that was brilliant.
I think we should be more passionate. Right? We should just be honest. This is an outrageous situation, and it's taking us to destruction. Right? We're literally compromising our planet's ability to sustain us. How polite are we supposed to be at this point? Right? I don't think we should be. I think we should be passionate. This is not just about me. It's not about you. It's about the next generation, the following one, the one after that. It's about everything in God's creation that lives out here. It's about our environment, our climate, our planet, our future. Bad agriculture is costing us very, very, very dearly. And I don't know if there's anything you should be passionate about. This is one of the things you should care about. Not be mousy and polite about. Polite and civil as much as we can, but this is an outrage.
Thank you, Hugh. I agree. Thank you for your passion. Thank you for your outrage. And thank you for talking.
Thanks, Dave.
All right.
Thank you for listening to the Real Organic Podcast. Our movement is growing because you're subscribing and sharing these podcasts with your friends. So keep it up and leave us a rating and a review as well. You can find a video version of this interview on our newly designed website, realorganicproject.org, or on our YouTube channel. And you can join us every Tuesday for a new episode featuring voices from the organic movement. See you next time.